Retrospectives.
Good morning, afternoon or evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the back row from What I Watched Tonight. My name is Matt Hudson, and this is episode 3 of Retrospectives. In these recurring shows, I'm going to be chatting about my favourite movies. But it's not quite that big-headed, because I'm going to be joined by a guest who just so happens to love that movie too. And tonight, for episode 3, we're going to be diving into a modern classic, I think you could probably call it. We're going to be talking about Gladiator from 2000. And joining me in the back row, the we in this show, is the Hertfordshire Legend. It's Katie Stubbs, also known as KT. How you doing, mate?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. That's the first time I've managed to say your name in a high voice with you on the other end of the line, so I feel like it's a breakthrough.
I like that you said Hertfordshire Legend, not Stevenage Legend. We're not going to go on to football, so...
Well, I mean, Stevenage, I'm from Woking.
Oh, God.
Katie supports Stevenage. For some reason or another, the two teams have had this decades-long rivalry, which I've never been able to explain to anyone.
We'll be the ones to bring them back together. It's fine.
Yeah. Stevenage, the Cards, and what's Stevenage's nickname?
God, it's just Borough. It's just
Borough. The Cards and the Borough. Let's come together. I've been to Stevenage. It's fine, and I made it out alive. It's fine. So, come on, guys. Stevenage. We both wear the same colours anyway. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, we're talking about football. Not soccer, football. Lower league football as well. So, but let's not talk about Stevenage's deficiencies. Stevenage Borough, Christ. So, yeah, as I said, we're here to talk Gladiator. The film is 19 years old now. It's legally able to drink in the UK. And it's directed by none other than Ridley Scott. Let's get the boring bit out of the way now. It stars Russell Crowe as Maximus. I'm not going to say the whole name. Okay, Maximus Decimus Meridius. That's it.
I could say that line forever.
Joaquin Phoenix as a Joker. Commodus. Oliver Reed as Proximo. Jimon Hunsu as Juba, Sir Richard Harris as Marcus Aurelius, Connie Nielsen as Lucilla, and many more. And if you don't know what the film's about, well, you're going to know all about it by the end of this. The synopsis says, set in Roman times, it's the story of a once powerful general forced to become a common gladiator. The emperor's son is enraged when he is passed over as heir in favour of his daddy's favourite general. He kills his father and arranges the murder of the general's family, and the general is sold into slavery to be trained as a gladiator, but his subsequent popularity in the arena threatens the throne. It made $460.5 million from $103 million budget, so it made its money back and more. Get this, second highest grossing film of 2000. It was $90 million behind Mission Impossible 2. So, before we jump in, as a warning, there will be spoilers for the movie throughout. It's going to be more spoiler-filled than my daughter's old nappies. We're going to be discussing specific moments from the film. So if you haven't seen it, find yourself 2 hours, 50 minutes, go watch it, come back and listen to me and Katie basically to shoot this gladiatorial breeze. So bear that in mind. So, enough from me rambling on. Let's hear from you, Katie, the Hertfordshire Legend. I guess first thing is, when did you first see Gladiator?
Thinking back to when I first saw it, I must have been about, I want to say 14, maybe 15. So I'm kind of under the age of when you're meant to watch it, but it was nonetheless brilliant and still kind of mind-blowing to me. Because I always think it's probably being sappy. It's probably a film that's very special to me because it is the first, I'm doing quotations here, adult film I watched. Obviously, with it being quite violent, quite violent, and the swearing and just all that type of stuff. Films, I guess kids at that age aren't used to watching things like that, so that definitely made it more impactful for me. Definitely at that age, seeing all the violence and stuff, and just the epic battles and everything like that, and I still find it very creepy now. Just the very creepy performance. Very fantastic, creepy performance of Joaquin Phoenix as Commodus. It's just such a good film, and it's definitely had a impact on my interests. Like I want to say, like everything. Like if there's ever like a Roman TV show, or I want to say like Roman ancient Greece because they're quite similar styles and things like that. But if there's ever like a Roman TV show, video game, anything like that gets advertised, it's always got my interest because it's all thanks to Gladiator. I'm definitely been absorbed into that sort of that period of history, mainly because of this film. And even though it's
it's not beholden to what's
not
really happened.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. That it's
Yeah, I think it's because it's not set on the legend of Hercules or Zeus. I think they had a bit. It is set on it's kind of based loosely on stories from the time, I believe. But they had a bit more liberties.
I think the only thing, if I'm correct, that actually existed was Marcus Aurelius and his son Commodus.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if Commodus actually murdered his father because he wasn't given rulership of the land. I don't know if that's actually true, but I think that's the only thing I can remember thinking that is true, is that obviously Aurelius was a real person and so was his son Commodus. But everything else I would like to believe is fictional.
I think Aurelius died of the flu or something like this, and Commodus did take it over in real life, and people thought he was all right actually, and then he became more of the tyrant we see in the film, and people turned against him. So,
because I would very much like to think that Commodus was, but they were probably creating the role that Joaquin Phoenix would perform.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to say probably maybe they had Julius Caesar in mind.
Yes,
very much so.
Yeah, there's a massive Caesar element to him, I think. And it's funny because when I was in Stephen, I did see someone wearing full gladiatorial outfit with a sword. Now I know it was Katie. That's how much it's influenced her. But no, that's interesting you say that, actually, because this film has had a massive impact on historically. Not in terms of changing the future, but there was a big old boom of people being interested suddenly in these kind
historical films.
Yeah, they're historical films, but also just the documentaries, the books, and I mean, if just some of the films that have come out since, obviously Troy and Alexander, things like that. But 300, Kingdom of Heaven, which was and Exodus, Gods and Kings, which was Ridley Scott as well.
Also bring up, even though it's not Roman, it was set in Scotland. Braveheart was done. Roughly around the same time, I think. I think they kind of competed. Well. I haven't seen that.
It's a really good. I think it's about a year or two before. That's a good film as well.
I always feel like people compare these two films, Gladiator and Braveheart. I'm not sure if Braveheart was first. Or... I
think Braveheart was 97 or 98, so about a couple of years prior.
But also, that's what I was trying to think of earlier before I went off, before my brain just died on me. Was because obviously we both love Star Wars and things like that.
We do.
But so Star Wars automatically goes into my favorite film of all time. But then I'll always say, if you take Star Wars away, because it's in its own category for me,
that's it.
Gladiator is my favorite film of all time. And I went to for my 21st birthday. I actually went to Rome. To Rome, and it's probably gonna stay with me for the rest of my life. One of the most memorable holidays I had. It was just me and my dad, and it was just looking around Rome, going to the Colosseum, went to the Vatican, just went to all these historical places. And it's you think someone that's 21, it doesn't feel like that's what normally they're into, because I reckon there's probably people out there that were at a similar age would think that's just boring. But for me, I just couldn't get enough of it. And I went to the Colosseum, and obviously it doesn't look how it does in the film, obviously. No. But it's all, it's all crumbled and things like that. But it's still just walking around inside it, and as I did, I was just thinking scenes in Gladiator. You look down at the middle and stuff, and you think that could have happened in there and things like that. And it was just mental. And the fact that the Colosseum was built by man, by slaves.
Yeah.
As horrible as it is, still blows my mind.
Still a hell of an achievement, though, isn't it?
It's built like that.
Yeah, the stuff that went on in there, all those, the Christians being slaughtered by the lions and all that, but still, is history. It's ancient history, and that's the first. We jest and have a laugh about the football, but I think that's a similar vibe, because back in those, that's the first stadium.
That's basically what their sport was.
Yeah, people would get together, and as gladiators, we're going to speak about, the crowds were up for it. The crowds, live, or whatever they were shouting. They're chanting in unison together. Once you get into that Colosseum
and everything like that, it's
once you enter the Colosseum, everybody everybody's pretense leaves them. Your class or your background doesn't matter. Once you're in that Colosseum, everyone's there for the same reason. Similar to sporting events. Once you're in that stadium, you're all fans together for that 90 minutes or however long it is.
Yeah.
So,
and that's why I like to say that I feel like in the film, the audience, when they get to the Colosseum, is almost like a character in itself, because they want to Proximo, which is Oliver Reed's character, who is when Maximus gets sold into slavery, and Proximo is the one that buys him. And basically, he buys a lot of men and trains them up to be gladiators and stuff. So basically, Proximo became his teacher and his mentor. And he always said, if you've got to win the audience, you've got to get the audience on your side, otherwise you won't last long in the Colosseum at all. And for half the film, when when Maximus was working his way up the ranks as a gladiator, that was like the audience was becoming almost like a character, because he did everything, I think, to pee off Joaquin Phoenix's character Commodus, but he did everything he could do to please the audience all the time.
He's a showman.
Yeah,
he's a first greatest showman. No, you're right. The audience in should we just jump into what we like then? Let's get into so mentioning those kind of scenes. Then we're talking about the crowd scenes. I mean, a lot of my favourite scenes. I do have some more quiet, introspective moments, but a lot of my favourite scenes, of course, are those big moments in the various arenas or the fight moments. And of course, you've got the ones with the duel, Maximus versus Tigris of Gaul.
Firstly, that's when obviously the tigers come out and stuff, right?
Yeah. Tigris' mask, first he was badass to start with.
Yeah.
And they're dueling together, and Tigris is undefeated. So you've got Maximus, the rising star, who is also undefeated against Tigris, and Commodus is in the arena, and he's with Lucilla, and he's basically saying, in a nutshell, he basically says, "I have rigged this so that bastard dies," basically, and they're fighting. These tigers come out of nowhere and start mauling at Maximus, who then obviously gets the upper hand, stabs Tigris through the foot, and then you've got the crowd shouting, what's going to happen. Commodus lifts his thumb up and down, and then we've got that brilliant moment where he's called Maximus the Merciful. But the crowd in that scene is pivotal, because it looks like Maximus is going to just kill him. Exactly, they wanted to kill him, and it shows that dichotomy of the audience, what they're there for. They're there for the death, the murder, and the sport in it. Maximus isn't that kind of person. He's doing it because, well, that's pretty much what he has to do to survive now. And that's for the first scene, for me anyway. I love that. Do you know what I also liked about that scene?
Right.
We know damn well we're going to mention the score to this film, but that duel had no music, and I quite a lot of them, and I love the fact that it's just, excuse the terminology, just grunting, swords slapping each other.
Just the clanging of the swords and the roars of the tigers and things like that.
Exactly, and it's just those kind of natural noises, if you will. So that was like my first one, but what did you think about that, and any more for you?
Well, that scene I really do like. As I said, it has throughout a lot of this film, there's always a lot of gory bits and stuff, but that part in particular where he stabs him in the foot, that always makes me cringe. It always makes me cringe, because you just, I don't know, I just try and imagine what that would feel like immediately, like whack right in the foot. The bullet
spuds up.
But then it's also just the, again, performance of Joaquin Phoenix. You can see that he's so conniving at that point that he's like, I really want to kill this person. I want to kill this guy, and he thinks it's going to happen, or he really, and then that doesn't happen. But then he basically wants it. He disobeys him basically when he says, "Okay, you kill him," and he's like, "No, I'm not going to kill him." He just throws the weapon down, and he's like, "That's that." And you could just see him, Commodus's face is like he's really trying to, obviously, just push his buttons, things like that. But I would say probably one of my favourite scenes in the film is, well, I've got multiple. Obviously, we'll get to most of them.
Yeah.
But the beginning of the film, it's actually probably one of the best openings to a film. Just that huge battle against the tribes and
Germanic tribes,
primitive people of Germania and things like that. I just love it. There's so many quotes in there that I can remember. On my signal, unleash hell. Things like that. It's something just so like that. And that makes me just go into something else. That Russell Crowe, in most films I've seen him in, he can't keep an accent to save his life. He really, really can't. Like I watched Robin Hood with him in it, and
Jesus.
It's not great. It's really not great. I mean, the best part, I guess, is Oscar Isaac as King John, but that's about it. But he goes from so many different accents in that film. Robin Hood's a Northerner, and he goes, I think, he just goes from Northern to Scottish to his to where he's from and things like that. But then he's just, I don't know, he just keeps a good accent and stuff in Gladiator, and that's why the quotes and all his lines sound pretty badass and things like that. but the music as well in that scene, like that's probably one of the best pieces of music in the film from Hans Zimmer. It was really, really good. It's such an epic opening to a film, and yeah, so gory and just so epic. You know, when they're charging in, they flank them and they come in from behind and things like that. It's just so good, and the choreography and cinematography, it's brilliant.
It's got everything you want from a battle. Beheadings, immolation, you get limbs getting lopped off left, right, and centre. Yeah, exactly. You got Russell Crowe maintaining an accent. It's just a brutal fight, and the editing isn't so fast paced that you can't see what's going on. Nowadays, you get a lot of battles, and the editing's so choppy that you're trying to keep up, and you think, Jesus, what's going on? Who's fighting who? Who's died? They let it breathe somewhat. It's still frantic, and there are moments where you get these kind of like strange, slow, almost like slow motion moments.
Yeah, it was like right near the end of the battle when I don't know, I can't remember when it happened. I don't know, because I remember right, Maximus gets like knocked off his horse and stuff like that, and he has to fight on foot, and that's when it kind of starts, and then a dog starts mauling one of the soldiers and stuff, and that's when the slow motion starts, and you kind of think, is it meant to be like, I don't know what the right word is, but it's just it still fits in. It still fits in, even in this chaotic battle.
And there's a technical reason for that as well. I found this out a while ago, but where obviously Ridley Scott was filming that scene, there's a lot of extras involved. There's a lot of imagine how much practical work is on that. There's fires, so there's fires, there's animals, there's men, there's weapons, there's stuff and continuity wise. To come back the next day would have been a nightmare to try and set it up exactly the same as it was where they left off. So basically, they kept shooting into the low light, so they had to change the something on the camera. Sort of I call it the low light settings, but whatever they're called, to be able to capture in low light. So that's why you got that kind of slow motion, almost like blurred effect at times.
Because is that the only slow mo shot in the film?
Pretty much, yeah.
I think it is. I'm trying to think if there's any more.
Pretty much, and it's intentional, because when I rewatched it, because of course I rewatched it for this show, I'd forgotten about it, and I was like, it's a really odd artistic choice just to go slow motion, and then I remembered, and I read up about it again. I was like, okay, yeah, there was a reason for it, but it works just fine for me.
And it blends in very well with Hans Zimmer's music. I mean, because you got the bits where there's people colliding, the horses are throwing off the riders and just being squashed and everything like that. And the music sounds very chaotic as well, because it just builds up and up and up until that big crescendo of just everyone bashing together and everything like that. But then the music gets very nice, mellow, and almost, I want to say, soothing in a weird way.
Serene, deft.
Yeah, serene when the footage starts slowing down and stuff. So that's really good. That was a good blend of music and cinematography.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Hans Zimmer's score was magnificent. And on Russell Crowe's accent, like I said, The Mummy that came out recently, that absolute pipe blocker from with Tom Cruise in it. What the hell was Russell Crowe's accent there? He had this Cockney accent, and it was abysmal. And again, he kept diving in and out of this absolute sort of Dick Van Dyke Cockney accent. If you haven't heard it, it's not quite as bad as Keanu Reeves in Bram Stoker's Dracula, but ain't far off. It's abysmal. And this has come from somebody who's a huge... I think Russell Crowe is one of the top 5 working actors today. I think Russell Crowe is spectacular. In this film as well, he's brilliant. I believe he won Best Actor for this film.
He did, and
he's excellent.
I guess we'll get onto that at another time.
Yeah.
Go right into it now, your choice, but...
No, whatever you want. Let's just go. Let's talk about it. Yeah, let's talk about Maximus. Let's talk about Maximus, and let's talk about Commodus, and let's get those character bits out of the way, because they're big. Obviously, they're big parts of the film, but they are probably the most crucial aspects of why the film is so good. The narrative is great, the script's great, the score's great, but without Russell Crowe and Joaquin Phoenix's powerhouse performances, imagine if their performances had been 75%. Not quite as good as they had been. Does the film still succeed? Yeah.
But no, I'm definitely, that's what I think, because I can't remember if Joaquin Phoenix was actually nominated for one as well.
He was nominated for supporting actor, but didn't win it.
Because that's the thing, I thought like he deserved to probably win it.
Yeah.
I really, really did, right? Because obviously Russell Crowe, Maximus, is the main character, and he plays a stellar performance at, the guy trying to basically he's a general, and all he wants to do is go home. He's been away from his family for a long time and things like that, and he is just about to go home, which makes obviously the death of his family more tragic. That he's actually just about to go home and see them anyway, and obviously his family gets murdered by Commodus, and and then the film becomes basically almost like a revenge mission for him. Like he finds himself in circumstances that he's like, okay, now I can work my way up and actually get to Commodus and kill him for what he did. So that's like half of the film is almost like a revenge mission and stuff. But it's just but Joaquin Phoenix, I think, is the standout performance for me in the movie, as probably one of the best villain portrayals of all time, in my opinion. Just because he's evil. I mean, he starts off as, I guess, like a spoiled kid. I want to say, kind of like he wants to be in charge, but there's also that side where you're like, I don't feel sympathy with him, but you kind of can. He just wants to earn the respect of his father, but also he just wants to be on the throne. He's like, please love me, Dad, but I just want to take your seat. That's kind of what it is. And then when he finds out he won't be emperor, and he goes as far to murder his own father because he just wants to be emperor, then obviously that's where the evil side comes out. But then after that point, there's a lot of evil. There's a lot of arrogant obnoxiousness about him. But then there's also probably the biggest thing, just the creepiness, the very big creepiness he portrays. Like there's the scene with he wants to sleep with his sister for one as well.
Game of Thrones, take that.
Yeah. He wants to sleep with his sister for one, but then you get the scene with Lucilla's son Lucius.
Yeah, when he's watching him.
When he's just watching him sleeping. And it's like I feel like in his head he is thinking, I can kind of pull him under my wing and make him like my little crony, my little minion type thing. But it does, and he has his own theme as well. Like Hans Zimmer, every time he's on screen, or he's got like, I don't know, just a creepy little scene, or he's got a scene where he's planning stuff. It's always a little foreboding, little creepy like piece of like a flute playing or violins or something like that. It's just always got its own creepy little theme, and it always sends shivers down my spine because he plays it so well, and he's such a creepy evil character. He really is.
Commodus was a bastard, basically. He was. Do you know what was that geezer called? Joffrey from Game of Thrones. He based his character off Commodus, and doesn't that show? Because
really. Yeah, she took him as inspiration.
Yeah, Joffrey was you wanted that. I'm talking. Obviously, I say this about a young in Game of Thrones, a young child king, whatever, a young teen. I wanted him to die horribly, basically. And Commodus is just Joaquin Phoenix, and he imbues that character with such a sleaziness, but like a frighteningly terrifying creepiness. There's something something in his eyes just isn't right. Like he's got this dead stare, and every time he's on screen you're not sure what's going to happen because he's just like a loose cannon. I was going to say to you, out of Russell Crowe and Joaquin Phoenix, if you had to just put the deciding vote on who did a better performance, but you mentioned Joaquin Phoenix, and I tend to agree. Not that Russell Crowe wasn't good, because Russell Crowe was magnificent, but there was just something unhinged and wired about Joaquin Phoenix, and obviously we know how seriously he takes his roles, how much he dives into his roles, and it shows here because apparently there were scenes where he'd get so into it he'd pass out on set, where he just like the blood would go to his head so much that he'd just pass out. Yeah,
because that's the thing, when the scene where he's basically smothering his father to death. It's you can kind of see almost like
I think that was one of them.
Yeah, the spit of the dribble coming out of his mouth because he's squeezing. Obviously, he's not squeezing his head. I know that, but he's squeezing like a model of a head or something. Obviously, it's probably as hard as he could, and you could just see all the stuff coming out of his mouth, and it just shows he has tried his damnedest to pull this performance off.
Yeah, and I believe that was one of the ones where he basically just fainted afterwards. But so Joaquin Phoenix is strikingly good in this film, terrifying, but he's like an absolutely horrible version of Heath Ledger's Joker. That when he's on screen, you just want to watch him. You're compelled to watch him. But of course, he takes that madness a couple of notches up from that. So about Russell Crowe, though, I thought Russell Crowe was great because whereas Joaquin Phoenix had to sort of go a bit more, I don't want to say over the top but in terms of the character, he was bigger and louder and more brash.
Yeah.
Russell Crowe had at times he had to be the opposite of that to me. Of course, he had to be kind of the bravado gladiator, but he had to deal with a more emotional side, which wasn't anger; it was sadness and revenge, and so quite a little bit quieter almost. And I think he was fantastic in that. And again, the scene where he finds his
family,
wife, and son died, and he just basically bursts out into just emotion. I thought that was brilliant. The like you mentioned, the lines he has in this film, the iconic lines, he delivers them so well. And I think he deserved to be up there for the best actor of the year for that year. I think. I mean, looking at the people who he was up against, he was up against some very good performances. But I'm not going to deny him his win.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like one of the most I would judge it as a very iconic line from a movie, and that is, "Are you not entertained?"
Yeah.
Like just that moment where and again, that's where he's showing off like his, I want to say badassery. That's the right word to say.
It's a word now.
It's a word to say. Because he's there, he's fighting and things like that. And I think just before that battle took place, I think he was, because when I watched this, I didn't watch it like in the last couple of days, but I watched it probably about a month ago to show a friend who hadn't watched the film before. And I think the one I found was the extended edition, which I kind of thought, because the film was a bit longer, and there's not huge changes between the normal edition and the extended edition. It's basically just some scenes are more elongated. There's basically, they don't cut off straight away. They're showing a little bit more, but one of them was and this was added in the extended edition, was Proxima before that battle telling him you need to kind of put on a show, kind of not just kill everyone outright, come out the gates and basically stab, you're dead, because at that point he was the best gladiator in that arena. All the others were quite amateurish compared to him, but that's because he was a general. He knows how to fight already. But and after he killed them all, he then, that's when he was just walking around the dead bodies thinking, okay, and then he just throws the sword up to where like all the snooty politicians or people that have placed their bets are just sitting. And I think that's what he was proving, because he's obviously been told before that fight, you're not entertaining people because you're just outright killing them. So that's like one of my favourite scenes in the film as well. Just him basically saying to the people that are betting on him and watching him, you're not entertained by this. Yeah. And they are. They eventually start clapping and they start chanting his name, so they are entertained by him.
It's that really satisfying clang of the sword when he throws it at the higher echelons, and everyone in the crowd sort of going, oh, and again, when a scene is a line is iconic, when people say it, I say it most of the time, or it's parodied or it's memed, and I mean it's every time there's it. I mean, journalists and magazines will use that line a lot. They'll run with that line an awful lot for if the ratings are low for a TV show or something else, but they'll always put like, "Are you not entertained?" And it's brilliant. I think I can't remember if it was that line or not, but there was one line that Russell Crowe thought was absolute crap, basically. But
it became popular.
Yeah, and it may have. I'm not sure if it was that one or it was another one. It might have been one a bit later in the film, but there was one or two. But I'm glad he did, because that line is brilliant, and the scene itself was great because he just basically just lays waste to all of those punks in the most devastating way. Yeah, and it makes it look easy. Literally, within the space of a minute or a minute and a half. Yeah, they're all dead. They're all just limbs on the floor. And he's just kind of like, "Come on, guys, come on! Yeah. Is this not good enough for you? This is what you want. This is what you're here for, and I'm doing it." I really like that scene. Again, that's funny because most of our scenes are those big scenes, and of course there's a big scene at the end which we can get into. But I guess for a quieter scene, I really like a scene which I haven't really mentioned Marcus Aurelius too much. Sir Richard Harris, God rest his soul. Yeah, it's Marcus Aurelius and Maximus, and they're basically having this kind of quiet chat about Rome, what's going to become of Rome. And Maximus sits down and describes his home to Marcus Aurelius. And it's just a great, quiet scene. Sir Richard Harris is excellent, pre-Dumbledore. Yeah. And they kind of talk together, in their words, as men. And it's Marcus Aurelius is sort of saying, how am I going to be remembered? And he basically offers Maximus the title of Protector of Rome. And they're like, let us whisper together, you and I. Tell me about your home. And Russell Crowe, this is one of the ones he ad-libs. He's basically, the home he describes as his own home in Australia.
Oh,
when
really?
he's saying that the poplar and it smells of herbs and that. So he's actually discussing his own home. Because I always think that, every time I hear it, I love this scene. I think it's a powerful scene. But I always think it's very specific, like poplars. Then now, when I realise that it's just basically him riffing about his own gaff, then it makes more sense. But I really like that scene. It's just there are other scenes like this, quieter moments which doesn't involve death, blood, and gore. But I really like that scene because it shows Maximus. He's offered his protective Rome, and he's like no. And the way Marcus kind of embraces him afterwards, he's almost like, "That's my boy. I knew you were going to say that."
I knew you were going to say that.
But so I that was one of the quietest scenes I really liked.
I like it because I do like that one. I wouldn't say it's a favourite, but I do like. I know what you mean. That it's probably one of the better, quieter ones. Not better in that. I think other scenes aren't good, but you know what I mean. But I like it because it is him talking about Rome and what it has become. Because because he wants it to become a republic again. So kind of makes me think of Star Wars.
Gladiator republic.
Yes.
Yeah. I haven't got Luke here to do the voice.
But it's become, all the politicians and bureaucrats, again, very similar to Star Wars, have have taken, set their roots down, and it's become very corrupt.
The corruption,
and things like that. And that's what Marcus Aurelius wants Maximus to do, because he finds him very honourable, and he would probably put the power back to the people and things like that, because that's he at that point. I feel like is the people. So he knows best because he is he is the people, if that makes
he's uncorrupted. He stands for the he's like a representation of the good that Rome can give. Offer.
But then another quiet scene, now that we're on that subject, is it's more towards the end of the film. It features Joaquin Phoenix again. It's after their whole plan or coup has been thwarted, and they've all been captured. And Tommy Flanagan's character Cicero, was panged and everything like that. And I kind of since I watched Gladiator last, I've been watching Sons of Anarchy. It's such a great TV show. I don't know if you've watched it, but
do you know what? I'm really bad at TV because I watch films, and everybody tells me I need to watch all these different TV shows, and I haven't. The only one I watched is Prison Break. I watched that, which I really enjoyed that. I watched Match of the Day, but I really need to start watching. I watched the first few episodes of Stranger Things recently, so I have started. And not because I don't want to, because TV nowadays, as you know probably better than I do, TV nowadays is just like mini films anyway.
It rivals films.
Yeah,
it does.
So I really need to. But yes, Sons of Anarchy.
But Tommy Flanagan was in Sons of Anarchy, and that's so But he's much younger, obviously, in Gladiator.
Yes.
But the other, obviously, people will also know him from Guardians of the Galaxy because he was in that for a brief bit. But no, it was really cool just to see him in this film. But anyway, it's after their whole plan has been thwarted, and basically Maximus's servant friend Cicero has been hanged, Lucille's been captured, his son taken away, Maximus has been thrown obviously in the dungeons for the time being, and it just goes to Commodus the morning after that all happened, and he's got his sister sitting on a chair, and he's kind of saying, not to her, but he knows she can hear what will happen to her if she, or to her son if she tries to retaliate or escape or do anything like that. And it's this, and I think it's featured in probably the main trailer for Gladiator, is when he says, "Am I not merciful?" And he goes to kiss her, and she moves her face away, and then you can feel the music kind of building up a lot. And he just, he forcefully grabs her face and he shouts, "Am I not merciful?" in her face.
Yes, it screams in her face.
And I wonder if that was improvised, because if that was improvised, that would probably scare the hell out of her.
It was improvised, and that's why she looks like she's just bricked herself.
That's just mind blowing. That's fantastic. That is. Now, that's probably one of my favourite scenes in terms of quieter scenes without all the battles and stuff. Oh, so good. But then it leads on, obviously, to a really good, sad but really good ending as well.
Yeah. Poor old Connie Nielsen. She's just doing her job, and then whacking Phoenix gets. I just love the idea of whacking Phoenix getting literally so into it. He just loses himself and thinks he's the character, and just starts bellowing in this poor woman's face, and she's like, Jesus, whacking. Yeah. But it's also tested because people mention him in that scene, as they should. But you've got to also mention Connie Nielsen, because that's unscripted. She's obviously they're in character, and then obviously he's just broken script, if you will, done that, but she reacts. Obviously, she looks scared generally, but she doesn't drop her character, and that must be a hard thing to do because you're startled, and it probably would be quite easy to be like, ugh. But,
I know. Yes.
Yeah, she does so well to keep her cool in that scene.
But then before that, another scene that just popped into my mind is when I think he's worked out the plot. He's worked it out, and he's talking to Lucius, and it's about the bumbling bees or something like that. Yes. He tells a story about bumblebees or something like that, and he's basically saying, as she's there sitting there and kind of like, what, because at that point she's worried, she doesn't want her son anywhere near him because he's dangerous, and he's she's basically going behind her brother's back to take him off the throne and possibly kill him and things like that. So, and she knows if he catches her, she's most likely going to be killed in her mind at that point. But then it's just him, how he's telling this story, basically about this, like this one bee betraying all the other bees or something like that. It's obviously told in a very simplistic way for the purpose of Lucius the child, but you can tell because he's telling it, but he's staring right at her as he's telling that story. Like basically, like, I know what you've done. Yeah, and you're in trouble.
Yeah, that's it.
And it's just so. It's spine chilling, that is, because you can even I think there's a bit of it's just a bit where Lucius kind of is looking at him and then at his mother, like he's kind of like worried. He looks almost worried as well at that point, like he thinks there's something going on that I don't know about, type thing. But no, it's just him staring daggers at his sister as he's telling the story to her son that, hey, you've betrayed me, so you're in trouble. And it's
such a good scene that leads into the big finale. I mean, and it's funny because most of the scenes we're mentioning now, most of them centre around the Commodore's character, which is interesting as well, because obviously I mentioned the one with Marcus Aurelius and Maximus, but most of the moments that I remember from this, not all of them, of course, but a lot of them do revolve around Commodus, just because Joaquin Phoenix was such a magnetic performer in this film, and obviously, Christ only knows, Joker comes out this week, controversy aside, he looks stunning in that film. I haven't seen it, so I can't say for definite.
I am going to go see it this weekend,
I can't wait. I hope it's going to be good.
I'm very much expecting, obviously, Commodus vibes.
I'm expecting one of the best performances of the year from what I've heard. But, again, open mind and all that. But in this film, a lot of the moments that spring to mind are just as much about Commodus than Maximus, because Maximus gets a lot of the major lines and moments, but Commodus's performance is what I remember a lot. But you mentioned it goes into that big old sad finale, and it's the showdown with the whole film's been building up to, basically. And again, it proves a very like a big characteristic of Commodus's character, that he is a coward. That he, basically Maximus is there in chains, and he's been caught, and he probably knows he's going to be sentenced to be killed in the arena. He doesn't know in what way, but then Commodus comes in and he just shows off his cowardness and his arrogant obnoxiousness, that he's like, yeah, I'll fight you. I can probably fight you. I can kill you. But I'll only fight you if you're fatally wounded. That's the thing. Yeah. And then he gives him the old stab in I think it was like the ribs or the heart or something like that. Oh. That's the thing. He can't fight him like just one-on-one, because he knows he'll probably lose. He would have had his bum handed to him, I think, had he fought a bloodthirsty, unleashed Maximus. As good as Commodus would have been, and was as a warrior, an unleashed Maximus, who just wanted blood, is going to tear him to pieces.
The only time you see Commodus actually doing any sword fighting is at the beginning of the film, before everything kind of spirals out of control, when Maximus just watches him do his sword training with all his servants and stuff, and and he's got good reflexes and stuff, but obviously they're almost like paid to like fail. I feel.
Yeah. Oh Christ!
So that's the only time you really see him doing any fighting. So.
And even then, when he does fight, he's fighting Maximus. Maximus is basically fighting one-armed, and he's still holding his own. And Commodus gets a shot in because on his back of his calf, I believe. But another thing I like about that final battle is it basically just turns into a fist fight towards the end.
It does,
which is the most sort of pure, raw form of aggression you could have, where these two, I say these two men, Maximus is basically just beating the hell out of Commodus with his bare hands, which is kind of as raw as you can get. But yeah, the sword, the duel between them it's impressive in the sense that he's got one arm and he's still holding his own.
Yeah.
But a fully limbed Maximus is taking Commodus to the cleaners.
Yeah, and I like it because obviously when he gives him another blow, because obviously he's basically dying at that point.
Yeah. He's like Kylo Ren.
Yeah, and he looks very weak after he's been cut. So Commodus is like, well, come on, I haven't got a sword on me, and he goes to the head general.
Yeah,
like, give me your sword so I can kill him, and he doesn't. But all the other soldiers were about to give him a sword, and he actually gives the order, like, sheathe your swords, do not give him a sword, because I want this to end honourably. As honourably as it can in that situation. Because he
saw him stab Maximus as well, so he knows that this isn't a fair fight to start with.
Oh, it's such a good one. And then when he actually gets. Well, he has a dagger also. Again, I just don't even think he had a dagger up his sleeve like Assassin's Creed, and again, it just proves that he wasn't playing fair. But obviously it all comes back to bite him in the backside because obviously Maximus, he wins. Obviously, at the
satisfying
cost of his own. It was so satisfying. It was so satisfying. Just you like to say you hear the gurgling and everything like that. These did.
Yeah, it's like jams that dagger into his throat, and you hear all the blood start pouring out, the gurgling. You probably hear the jugular getting pierced. It's brilliant. But again, it's not. Do you know what? It's not I don't think it was played for a big death. In the fact that when they did it, you don't get this kind of big
music again.
Score. Yes, there's no like big da score, and it's not. We're not zooming into action. You don't actually see the dagger go into his neck. Well, you just see, obviously...
You just hear it.
Yeah, you just hear it. And then Maximus is kind of cradling Commodus, not necessarily lovingly, and it's more about their quiet performances in that moment. Yeah. And it's the moment rather than oh my God, he's just stabbed him in the neck. And that could have been, in the lesser director, they could have made it a lot more of that. They could have made it gorier and more bloodthirsty. But I think Ridley Scott handled that particular moment, really well.
Yeah, and then you kind of had that feeling of like that was epic, and I'm glad that happened. But then you're like, oh no,
Maximus will be fine now, surely.
Yeah, and then obviously that's when I can't. Every time, even though I know it's coming, I can't. For like the first few watches of this ever, I put on blubbered every time. Every time. Yeah, my family would be like, it's a happy kind of ending because he's going to see his family again. And I'm like, it's still sad.
It still dies.
But then I always get a lump in my throat all the time because it's the music again plays a big role in it, and it's just he basically did his job. Mm-hmm. Even though he didn't give, he did give the order before he died.
He did.
It's when he basically
freed the slaves and everything.
Freed the slaves and basically give the power back to the people and things like that. So he actually fulfilled his the dying wish of the emperor. Yeah,
and Lucilla says go to them because she could see. Because obviously during the fight as well, there are moments where it's probably pertinent to mention that
he's fading
Maximus
in and out.
Is basically he's dying. He's basically seeing the white lights and the pearly gates, but obviously he's seeing he sees the big gate, the big door, and beyond that the wheat fields. And he's kind of like during his hands kind of reaching out as he's staggering, and he's having to kind of be brought back into it. And during it, when he's given the order, that Lucilla can see basically that he's looking off beyond her. He's looking. She knows he can see his family. And she says, go to them.
And it's definitely hard for her, I feel, as well, because obviously, and we haven't spoken about it, but their relationship, obviously, before the film's events, they were together as a young couple and things like that. So that's definitely, I feel for her as well as that, because she, I don't know, maybe she thought that once they all escaped and stuff, they would probably be nice, be together and things like that. So I definitely feel for her.
And then you get the scene where he's brushing his hand across the wheat fields.
And that's such an iconic, I think, scene in the whole film, because you see it at the beginning.
Yes.
and then and then you just see it in multiple little bits.
There's
Like
no
half
context, yeah.
through, with no context. But obviously, I feel like the audience would know because it's just like I don't know, it's just all these little bits of like, at least is it Elysium and things like that. That's just the afterlife and things like that.
Yes, there's something about it, even like the grading and the way just like the colour is drained. There's just something beautiful about that shot and that moment. Obviously, there's a satisfaction in the fact that he managed to jam that knife into Commodus's throat. Then obviously the kind of the bittersweet sadness that in order to free everybody, he then dies himself. It's not because of that, but because of Commodus's cowardice. But he's not there. He's not able to see the liberation of Rome and the people. But you then there's the knowledge that he has found peace. He's found what he wanted. There's his wife and his child, and he's free now. So it's kind of like satisfying, bittersweet, sad, kind of satisfying as well at the end. It's like a gamut of emotions in that, and the I word iconic. It's Ridley Scott has done an awful lot in this film. It's iconic, and that's just one of those scenes as well. It's just handled so beautifully. That scene with the wheat fields and everything, and it's probably instantly recognisable, I think, in film.
Yeah. And then you got the scene afterwards, which leads obviously to the credits with his. He became his best friend when he was fighting the gladiators, and that's Juba, obviously played by Jimon
Hunsu?
Yeah, and he becomes basically like his best friend. They were partnered up in like their first arena fights and stuff like that.
Yep.
And obviously in their quieter moments, they would tell each other about like their families and stuff. Obviously, Juba's family was still alive, so obviously that bit was different, but they could still kind of connect. And because they were both men that had been taken away from their families and things like that. And I think he sees him with his little figurines of a woman and a child, which obviously Maximus sees as his wife and his son. And I think that I really liked that he buried those little figurines where he died. And, and I do like his lines as well, like, I will see you again, but not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Not yet. Oh, God.
He always says that.
There's so many good. Death smiles at us all. All we can do is smile back. Yeah, it's like lines like that, and obviously we mentioned what an arse Commodus is, but when he goes down into the arena early on, and he wants to know who this warrior, who's this gladiator, who's this incredible fighter. Maximus is thinking, I ain't having none of this. I'm tipping sod off. He turns his back on him, and Commodus is like, Who are you? Are you going to show yourself, blah, blah? And he says, my name is Gladiator. And then he says, my name is Maximus Decimus Meridius.
Father to a murdered son.
That's it.
Husband to a murdered wife.
And I will have my vengeance in this life or the next. And that was the line he didn't want to say. Actually, I remember now. He did not like that line one bit.
What, that whole monologue or just that?
Just mainly that bit at the end. Russell Crowe, and there's a few things about Russell Crowe in this film, Offset, which you all know is a bit of a character, shall we say. But that he really, really, really didn't like that line, apparently. And, it's funny that...
It just feels more emotional to the scene, I feel. Yeah. Because it's like he's actually face to face, and he's obviously got to hold back his want to kill him. Because obviously if he does, he knows he and all his men will be slaughtered and things like that.
Yeah.
But he's got to really hold it back. So he's like, I will have my vengeance at some point.
Yeah.
And he does.
And he was... I don't know why. I mean, I'm not Russell Crowe, but the line feels right. Obviously, in watching it, it feels right. But who is it? William Nicholson, the guy who wrote the script. Russell Crowe said to him, your lines are rubbish. But I'm the greatest actor in the world, and I can make even crap sound good. Was basically what he said, and he said it because he couldn't improv anything better. But I mean, there was a few issues with Russell Crowe on set. We know what he's like. Russell Crowe and Richard Harris became such good friends apparently, but Oliver Reed tried to beat Russell Crowe up. He challenged him to a fight. Which
why do I feel like Oliver Reed was very much like his character?
Oliver Reed told Ridley Scott on set, as soon as 5 o'clock comes, I'm out of here. Every day he was a 9 to 5 worker, and God bless the Hellraiser. Whatever we probably knew where he went after work, straight down to the old pub, I imagine. But he basically said from 5 o'clock I'm doing my own thing, so love it, like it or lump it. And Ridley Scott was like, well, I'm going to lump it. I'm going to like it, sorry, because you're so good in this film. But maybe he'd done bugger all before that, really. Oliver Reed for years before that. So I thought Oliver Reed as Proximo, I thought he was really good in this film. And it's obviously he died of a heart attack during filming, so they had to abruptly end his character in that siege of the barracks where him, Hagen, and Cicero were killed. But I thought Oliver Reed was really good. And it's easy to look offset and think, oh, Russell Crowe's just a loudmouth idiot, or Oliver Reed's just this, bloke who turns up, thinks he's a star, and whatever other problems he had. But in front of the camera, I thought Oliver Reed was great.
No, I did as well, and that's what, talking about his death scene and stuff, I wonder if that's what did they actually have that planned from the start for Troy to kill him off?
He was going to live.
He was going to live.
He was going to be the one to bury the things at the end.
Ooh, okay, that would have been. I don't know, but it's obviously because now we've seen it. I don't know how I would feel and things like that. But it was his death scene. They obviously reused an old shot. Of he was saying stars and dust. That's what he says to Maximus as he heads out to one of his battles, and they actually just reused that same shot close up to his face. And then obviously when the soldiers will come up to stab him in the back and kill him, you can clearly tell it's also like a blow up doll mannequin.
It's a model, isn't it? Yeah, it's ridiculous, but yeah.
But it's still. But then obviously things happen obviously outside of films, and you got to do what you can do.
They did a good job, I think, in actually because we've spoken about things like the Rise of Skywalker. With Carrie Fisher, God rest her soul too. She's not around to film those scenes, sadly. And there's been talk about how are JJ and Kathy and Lucasfilm and Disney how are they gonna bring her back into the film. They've had 2 years of which to come up with a solution.
It's a situation I don't want to wish on anybody. No. Obviously it's terrible that it's happened, but it must be so hard for them to try and do right by family members and friends, and then obviously, but do enough to still make it make sense.
You've got to keep the not dignity, but you've got to keep the integrity of the film as well. You have that. You've also got to think that the film, the project we're working on, we have to respect that as well. So, do we recast and redo the whole thing, or do we, finish his story how they did? Which I think actually they handled it really well, to be honest. But there must have been a bit of a panic where they must have thought, Jesus, what do we do? Do we recast Oliver Reed? Do we get somebody else in? Do we cut some of his performance to make him less of a character?
But he was such a great character though, because he was probably one of the funniest characters of the film as well. It's like his first line in the film is obviously because he's someone who buys a load of things, and he's like, "You sold me queer giraffes," and it's like basically it's his first line. It's just hilarious.
Introducing Oliver Reed to the film. Mate, there's so many. So, anybody out there listening as well, tell us your favourite scenes, of course. We want to hear what you have to say as well. But a film like this is just littered with scenes. And again, there's the battle where the slaves are all chained together and the guy piddles himself. And then poor guy's crying and he ends up getting skewered like a pig. But when I can't remember, I think it's Hagen. I can't remember the guy. I think it was
the big German
guy. Dude who's just taking falls down left, right, and centre. He's awesome. He was, and obviously Maximus as well. But I love that scene as well because it's a smaller but more brutal fight scene in the most horrible conditions. And
I feel fear for them as well. You see him. Pee himself and things like that, and I'm trying to put myself in that.
That's how I would
that be. Situation. I'd be like, oh, that's probably how I'd be. Just be like, I could not do that, but you have to. That's the way it's life for now and things like that. And then you got obviously the poor sod that gets killed the minute the gate opens. He gets a mace to the face.
He had hair like a mace as well, didn't he?
Yeah,
hair like a mace and a mace to the face.
But and then obviously the first gladiator scene we get where they have the chariots and things like that. That was. The music, that's probably my favourite scene in Colosseum in terms of big battles and stuff. I probably liked that more than the one with the tigers.
Yep.
Just because the music was so epic and some of the deaths were so gruesome. Like there was one where I think the chariot was just still going, like the wheel had this spiky thing on the end of it.
Yeah.
To obviously really harm people and stuff like that. And obviously one of the chariot riders fell off, and what's it do? It freaking cuts her in half. It's it's so brutal.
Ridley Scott didn't hold back. I know Ridley Scott's done some films before which involve a little bit of gore and chest bursting. But
oh God, yes.
he really went for it quite large in this film, to use a Kevin and Perry phrase, and I like that. And I like the fact that they didn't show, your kind of typical Roman life of people like wandering around in sandals, supping wine, and having grapes fed to them. It's a lot more sort of boots on the ground. I hate the word gritty, but it's a grittier feel to it. And the fight scenes are really good at showing. And moments like that as well. It's like kind of shocking, but at the same time, they're bloody awesome to watch.
Yeah. And just speaking of going off on Ridley Scott, I think the only other film I've watched of his is Prometheus.
Yeah,
Cause I've never seen Alien and things like that, because I'm not really a big horror person. But I went to see Prometheus, which wasn't scary per se, but I will admit, on a podcast, I cried halfway during that film because it terrified me. Of just like things bursting out of stomachs and stuff. I'm like, and then there was the Alien Covenant, and I'm like, I can't watch it.
Yeah, the backburster.
I cried at the first one. I'm not going to watch this. I'm not going to survive.
Do you watch Blade Runner?
I have, and I found Blade Runner 2049. When you were asking me for favourite movies and stuff, the sequel to Blade Runner, it's probably like my second favourite movie of all time. It's nice. It's such a good movie. But the first Blade Runner, God, I can't think of his name, but it's the actor who died recently. Plays the bad guy in it. Bad android.
Rutger Hauer. Yeah,
Rutger Hauer. Like he terrifies me. It's such a creepy performance. Again, talking about creepy actors and stuff like that. But it's like he plays such a creepy deviant, and it's how he actually hurts himself. I don't know. It's mental. It's a mental character, but it's so creepy, but it's so good.
Another creepy but good character who's got one of those soliloquies, one of those wonderful speeches and quotes in film history. So Ridley Scott's even though he doesn't necessarily write the films, he's synonymous with films with like extremely famous lines. And obviously all those moments that be lost in time, like Tears in Rain scene from Blade Runner.
So good.
There's so many just in Gladiator. Like we've mentioned, things like My Signal, Unleash Hell, Are You Not Entertained? Death Smiles at Us All a man can do is smile back. Many.
There's another one. What is it? He's talking to the soldiers at the beginning, and he's like basically like, no. It says, "What we do in life echoes in eternity."
Yes,
it's so good.
So that's right at the beginning. It kind of sets the scene and sets the stall for the film. You get quotes like that. You get the opening battle. You can tell this is going to be a heavy-hitting film. Then you get the score on top of it. I mean, that opening sort of 20 minutes basically sets out what we're going to get for the next 2.5 hours. And it's a magnificent opening. And that scene, that line, is great.
And then I've just found another one. It says, he's basically giving his big speech to his men before the cavalry charges. And he's like, if you find yourself alone riding in the green fields with the sun on your face, do not be troubled, for you are in Elysium and you're already dead. Some of them are just so good.
I mean, we could probably go onto IMDb quote something and just find an absolute shed load of them as well. Shadows and Dust. Yeah, you mentioned that one already.
But it's just the way he performs that one though, that he yells it. You are already dead, and it's just like, oh yeah, all cheering.
And Tigris, just before he gets absolutely schooled, we who are about to die salute you.
And that's another bit where he's basically being disrespectful to the Emperor, because before every fight, that's what they always say: we who are about to die salute you, and he just does not say anything.
And everybody starts laughing at the way he says it as well. But nothing happens to anyone that is not fitted by nature to bear. It's just a very well written film, I think. And shall we talk a little bit about that score, because it's in my head. It's one of the best selling film scores of all time, and I'm not surprised.
It's so good. And there's that one at the very end. I think it's on the soundtrack. It's called "Now We Are Free." And it's got the woman singing, and in the background it's got a choir and everything. It just sounds, and that piece of music in particular, I swear I hear it every now and again on like TV. That it's sometimes like some bits of music from this film are so iconic and so powerful and good that they're used on just other programs. Especially like the battle music from the first battle at the beginning of the film.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised if they did. The songs like Honour Him, Elysium, The Wheat as well, right at the end. Am I Not Merciful? It's just what Hans Zimmer's done with this is the score, the whole thing is fantastic, and I like Hans Zimmer an awful lot as as a composer. If I was going to drop a top 10, of course he's going to be in there. If I'm going to drop a top 5, high chance that he's going to be in that top 5. In fact, it's probably nailed on that he's going to be. And it's for scores like this where you get some scores which are big and bombastic and have like that kind of like John Williams kind of signature feel where there's like a very accessible kind of sound to it. Ones like this, it's just pure power to me and pure emotion. Yes, it's accessible and there are ones where you can listen to it and think, wow, I can get that stuck in my head. But the emotion that pours out of this score is mind blowing, and I can see why so many people bought it, because it's one of the best overall film scores of all time in terms of just stick it on, listen to the whole thing. It's outstanding.
Yeah, because when I do, I need to take notes for anything or do any type of work on a computer or anything like that. Just the way I am, I can't have music with lyrics because I'll get distracted and it will.
Thinking about the words,
yeah, and I need instrumental music, and there's always stuff like Disney scores in there. There's always Star Wars in there, and but Gladiator's a very big one that I always love to listen to because it is a lot of it. Obviously, ones that aren't battle themed, they're all actually quite soothing and quite and the honouring one. Not even watching the film gets me a tad emotional. Not crying. I don't cry as I walk down the street listening to it. But
we can hear you welling up now.
But no, I always just picture that scene in my head every time I listen to that particular piece of music.
It didn't even win Best Score either. It was Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon that year. And now, listen, Ang Lee, great film. I enjoyed it an awful lot. I feel a bit like Kanye West interrupting Taylor Swift here, but this should have been Hans Zimmer's year for. I mean that the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon score is.
Hans Zimmer should have won that Grammy.
He should have taken that Grammy. He should have gone up and taken it off of that. But the Crouching Tiger score is majestic, but it's not. I honestly do think that this score is one of the best modern film scores there is in the last. This film came out in 2000, so it classes as this millennium. It's one of the best film scores of the millennium.
It's 20 years old next year.
Yeah, it is, exactly. It's going to be 20 years old. It's not a teenager no more. So
I would love for them to put that back in the cinema, because I would love to watch it in the cinema, because obviously the first time I watched it was on DVD.
I think they will do.
Love to watch it in the cinema.
There's a kind of trend now, isn't there, of putting films out for anniversaries and stuff. I did it with The Matrix not too long ago. I think they will do 20 years of Gladiator, because it won Best Picture, so it's got that going for it. Put the one of the only kind of 75, one of the only sort of 80, 90 films that have ever won a Best Picture of all time. Put it back on the big screen for a weekend.
It make money.
Exactly, it has the best actor in it of the year, Russell Crowe. Also won for Best Costume Design, Best Sound, and Visual Effect as well. So it's it won 5 Academy Awards. It's a film that is classic for its performances, for its some of its scenes, the score, and the quotes. So it's not like people are going to be like, Gladiator? What the hell's that? Yeah. There will be a. I think it would do pretty damn well for a kind of a limited run, week somewhere. I think, especially, I don't know if they do it in every cinema. Obviously, London would have it, and probably Birmingham and Manchester.
My local cinemas probably don't do that really. The only thing I think they do is they do like an outdoor cinema type thing in the summer. And I think they've had an Indiana Jones movie there. They've put like Grease on, but that's about it. Like they don't do really any big themed things around it. Disappointingly. That's
a shame. Do you have any? Have you only got the big multiplexes, or do you have any kind of independent cinema?
I guess Cineworld is the closest one.
Yep, I think that's what I'm signed up for. Cineworld. Yeah, it is the unlimited jobber. Yeah.
But going back to music, just briefly going on to Star Wars.
Yeah, go for it.
Because we have to. Obviously, John Williams. It's his last. It's his last
Star Wars score. It's his last score. I'm starting to well up now.
And that's what I said. If I would recommend anybody, I'd like maybe Hans Zimmer. Give him a go. See what you could do with Star Wars. It's
why not? I mean, talent rises to the top. I mean, Hans Zimmer has shown with his eclectic range of films that I think he could do. He could do a Star Wars film. Why not? Obviously Star Wars has that identity now. The music has that. It kind of feel to when Michael Giacchino did Rogue One. The first thing people were saying was, "Does it feel Star Warsy enough?" Same with John Powell with Solo. Does it feel Star Warsy enough? And there's going to have to be a time when you kind of have to redefine.
Yeah, move on and do slightly different things.
Yeah, because he's done Gladiator. He's also done The Lion King.
Did The Lion
He
King,
did
which is
Dark-
another brilliant soundtrack.
Yeah, The Dark Knight, Interstellar, Dunkirk. I mean, I won't call Dunkirk a soundtrack necessarily, but Pirates of the Caribbean, Blade Runner 2049, Batman, Superman, Crimson Tide. Different types of films. The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Let's all try and forget that. But he's done plenty of different types, not just big brooding epics. He's the spirit stallion of the Siren as well. So there's so many films he could do. I don't see why not. It would certainly be a selling point for any potential new film coming up. Why not have Kevin Feige's film scored by Hans Zimmer? Just imagine that.
Big
Even
name
though
on
he's
music.
more of a DC man, but
Yeah.
but I don't see why not. I think Hans Zimmer. He doesn't answer to nobody. A bit like the Return of the King. You bow to nobody. Hans Zimmer doesn't have to. He doesn't have to. Sell himself. He's the kind of person that he will elevate anything he's on. I think. I genuinely think that as well. So I'd like to see Hans Zimmer see what he could do with a Star Wars film. Especially, I mean, imagine. Listen, I loved Michael Giacchino's Rogue One score. I really, 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 really like that score.
I did. It's got one of my favourite pieces of Star Wars music of all time, which is the whole musical suite when, basically, they're trying to get off Scarif, but they find out they
your
can't.
father would be proud. Yeah. Beautiful. But a film like Rogue One with the tone, and I know we're deviating slightly, but the tone of that film, would Hans Zimmer been able to have a bit of fun with that, do you think? Because and I've just said he doesn't do these gloomy, broody
probably
epics,
not,
but
because it's definitely, if you put all Star Wars movies together, it's probably the most serious one of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's got a lot more serious tone. Not all the heroes die. Spoilers.
Spoiler, yeah.
But
everyone's dead.
Yeah, everybody dies. The hero doesn't make it out. So it's definitely tonally different than all the other films.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to think what he could have worked on. That's already out there, but yeah, that's a good shout. Why not? Why not? Because he's got an Academy. He's an Academy Award-winning director. I do believe he should have had more. He won it for The Lion King. I do think he should have had more, especially with Gladiator. But no, I'd love to see Hans Zimmer do a Star War. So if you're listening, Hans, go and do a Star War, please. Visually, we mentioned it won visual effects as well, and the costume design. I thought the costume design was magnificent. Visual effects. What did you think about them in this film? Because it won visual effects for that year.
I'm trying to think of visual effects, and I'm trying to think. I can't. There's obviously stuff in the battles and things like that they need to use visual effects for to make it work. I want to say maybe the tigers, are they all?
I believe the tigers were real, they were not all, but sometimes they were added into the scene. But there were scenes where they were there.
Because that's the thing, I'm thinking of visual effects and I can't think of many that pop to my mind. But it's probably a good thing. And I'm going to assume it's probably the stuff maybe like some of the fire and explosions and stuff like that.
But some of the big shots of Rome were visual effects, like the background.
The Colosseum and stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, most of it doesn't come to mind, which I guess, it's a good thing, because I don't notice it.
Yeah,
it's not like Phantom Menace where it's just shoved in your face.
Oh, yeah. Jar Jar didn't turn up and start saying, "We are free," and get his bonds locked off by Maximus. Yeah, I thought it looked great. Malta doubles for Rome, and I've been to Malta, and it does hold that sort of ancient historical vibe, especially places like the silent city of Mdina. Just has that kind of otherworldly, ancient historical vibe to it. If anyone's been to Malta and been to Mdina, the silent city, you'll know exactly what I mean. It literally is like a historical hub, kind of preserved on this sort of. It overlooks the area that it's in. Yeah. Beautiful, and Malta just looks like it's hasn't moved. I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but most parts of Dust don't look like they've moved on. Game of Thrones shot a lot in Malta, and a few other historical films shot in Malta, because it's just kept that ancient look to it, like the walled cities and like the yellow stone that's there. Everything about it just looks of its time, and beautiful country, I will say that. But it's a damn good, fine place to shoot a film. But I haven't been to Rome, so I'd like to go to Rome. So when you're watching Gladiator, now you've been to Rome, you've been there. Firstly, before I go any further, do you like tiramisu?
I don't know who that is.
Okay, tiramisu is an Italian dessert, thankfully.
Okay.
It's my favourite Italian dessert. So had you said no, we would have ended this call very quickly. But I'll let you off. So you watch Gladiator now. Does it scream of Rome too? Does it have the aesthetic of Rome from somebody who's been there? or is it is it set too far back to notice?
No, I would definitely say it's set like that. It's definitely, it just screams Rome. And even though the Colosseum, when it's the scenes I actually feel it the most isn't in the Colosseum. It's probably outside of Rome when he's probably in the countryside and stuff. And when he's up, is that little sequence of him traveling back on horseback to find his family and things like that. And then it's also when they first enter Rome for the first time, and they're seeing like these big statues, and then they walk up to the Colosseum and they see this huge Colosseum, building that obviously, as we said, was built by man, and I can't, again, it's mind blowing, but yeah, definitely it screams Rome, and the costumes, the costume designs and everything, and the props and everything like that, it all screams Rome. It's definitely not a film I feel like, because I think other people, because I do know people that don't like Gladiator because they say it's too long and things like, which I can kind of get because it is a long film, but some of them say it's very Hollywoodized. When you see a war movie, like just a war movie I watched in recent years was Fury with Brad Pitt.
Yes,
and I liked it. It was probably the first proper war movie I watched. But I know it's like, compared that to Saving Private Ryan, it's definitely more Hollywoodized and very flashy, where it's not as grounded and gritty as like Saving Private Ryan was. So some people have said like Gladiator, they think it's too Hollywoodized and glamorous, and not as down to earth with its historical accuracy or historicalness. Whereas I don't agree with that. I don't obviously each to their own, but I definitely it screams Rome. It's not too fantastical or glamorous for me. It's the beginning battle is very, very, as you said, boots on the ground and very gritty and things like that. So
I think yes, it flouts historical accuracy, but name me one film which is shot for shot, beat for beat, absolutely accurate historically, and I'll sit here for another hour or two, and can somebody just name me one? There are films which are extremely, extremely close to home, very, very close to what really happened, but at the time, not everybody knows what happens because people might be dead, or it's set in ancient Rome. We don't know, but we know that it did flout the rules somewhat. But Ridley Scott didn't go out to make a historical biopic of anyone alive. It wasn't a film about Caesar or about Marcus Aurelius or about Hercules or something like that. Maximus Decimus, he's a made-up character, so you can do whatever you want of him. And they incorporated real elements like Commodus and Marcus Aurelius, and they incorporated them into the story. Quentin Tarantino does that all the time with his films. He takes well-known events. Look at Inglourious Basterds. Look at Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and he twists them and bastardizes them into what he wants. So the familiarity is there, but it's not quite what we know. It's nothing different to Gladiator. There is a familiar feeling to it, even if it isn't, nailed on what happened in real life. It doesn't need to be. And in terms of it being Hollywoodized, I'm not sure it is, because it's a film that's like 2 hours 50 minutes long. Now, in recent years, films are longer. And in 2000, we still had a long film. Braveheart's a long film. Titanic was bloody long, but and that was more of a Hollywood film. But I don't think a film that's 2 hours 50 minutes long,
like a film that's
deals with this kind of stuff, can be called Hollywoodized.
A film that's
some parts are.
A film that's similar to Gladiator is, obviously, I haven't seen it, but 300. Whereas I would probably say, just from bits I've seen, just from my personal opinion of what I've seen, because I haven't seen it, so I can't speak for the whole movie, but that looks Hollywoodized.
Well, it is, even just from the visual aesthetic, and that's got some brilliant lines, and it's a good film as well, actually. But it is just the way it's presented is Hollywoodized, and I think Gladiator strives for accuracy whilst also knowing full well that it isn't historically accurate. I think it tries its hardest to be true to itself, whilst knowing that we are taking liberties here. So I wouldn't call it a Hollywoodized film, because I think they could have gone a lot more kind of Troy or Hercules if they wanted to go, and they are Hollywood swords and sandals type films. As
we say, like, some scenes didn't have music in and things like that, and I feel like if, like, the final battle with Commodus, if it had like really epic music in it, I think it would have still made it. It would have been still, I think, good, but it just wouldn't have made it, I think, as powerful as it was.
It would have been slow motion. You would have had even more reaction shots from people in the crowd and from Lucilla and that, and you would have seen Lucius jump up and grab his face. No, and it would have been all kind of big and really bombastic,
cheesy, and
like some weird montage of people's faces going. in slow motion. It would have been like something like Family Guy would have pulled off. So again, each to their own. One of the things about this show, and I always try to put out there, is everybody's opinion is their own, and I absolutely have no issue with anyone's opinion, even the ones which are wrong. I'm not saying your mates' ones are, but there are some out there which you think, come on, mate, come on. But no, each to their own. I don't necessarily agree, but
no,
I don't see why people would say that. But on the discussion of what he didn't like, was there anything about this which, not even that he didn't like, but he thought, that wasn't quite as good as other things, or that I could have taken it out and it wouldn't have made a difference or anything? Was there anything you didn't really, like?
I don't think there's actually anything I actually just dislike. Like, take it out and it will make the film better or anything. I think I liked near enough all of it. There's bits I didn't like because they made me squeamish. Like there's so many. As I said, the guy getting stabbed in the foot and things like that. But there's the one that, obviously, I am a woman. I don't have these things, but I still felt the pain when this guy got impaled in the pleavets, in the privates,
in the nadgers,
and there's so many kills and stuff like that that just make you cringe and things like that. I'm like, they're still cool to see, but I'm like, I don't like them.
Yeah. If you could just take that out next time, Ridley, that would be great. Yeah. In the theatrical shot, we'll have a Katie cut. Yeah. It hasn't got like people's gonads being sliced or any of the squeamish bits.
Be more serious. There's nothing probably. Yeah, I'd like to say I like it all. I think it's
fair enough.
But there's some scenes that probably aren't necessarily needed. But I'm like, although there's some scenes as I said, I watched the extended edition. I'm like, some scenes were more elongated, and I'm like, okay, they could have cut that off a bit quicker. But it's nothing like I would have thought. Like, I actually hate this scene. Take it out because it'll make the film better. So that's good. Really,
it's fair enough. There, everybody has films like that, and I know how much you would adore this film. I don't think there is either. I mean, are the pacing, are some parts of it a tad too slow and meandering? Maybe a minute or two here and there, but I can't think of anything outright which I thought, do you know what? I wish that wasn't in there, or that performance wasn't great, or I wish they hadn't said that, or that visual effect wasn't great. You can some of the visual effects of Rome when it's green screen in the background, you can notice it, but I mean, for its time, was it better than some of the films that came out? Yes, it won the visual effects for a reason, based on when it came out, and I think it holds up to this day. And like you say, the proof would be on the big screen one more time with knowledge of how film was advanced in 19 years. Could we watch on the big screen and still just be so engrossed by it that we don't even notice that some of the effects may have aged? But I don't think they have, to be honest.
Good. I'm just imagining all the big scenes we've spoken about on the big screen. It just makes me salivate at the idea.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I guess if you want to be really pedantic, I mean, Maximus has a tiger on his back, sort of gnawing and slashing away at him, and you'd think, I'm sure the tiger would have just jumped at him and overpowered him, but it would have also been a very short film.
I'm trying to. How did they do that? Actually, did they just throw like a big stuffed animal on the back of him, or did they just basically film Russell Crowe and then film the tiger?
I like the idea of it just being a toy tiger in it. I don't know. Actually, I guess
because it looks real. That's what I'm saying. It does look real.
I guess it's very snappy. Bloke on his back.
It's very snappy shots though. So it's not long, so it makes me think maybe it's not a real tiger. Or I believe
that they were the VFX tigers, and I guess they probably had a guy on Russell Crowe's back just so they could get like the weight distribution.
Yeah.
So obviously, when a guy may have, I don't know this, so if anyone's listening, please let me know or let us know. But in my head, like somebody jumped at him, kind of like it would for a piggyback. So you have Russell Crowe kind of lurching forward, and that would be their kind of cue of when to insert the tiger in that. But
when you started that, I thought you were going to say someone dressed in a big tiger costume.
I would love it if it was literally a bloke dressed up as a tiger, like great, jumped on his back, and it's like you didn't need to dress up as a tiger. It's like, well, if Joaquin Phoenix can go full method, so can I. I am Tiger Man in this film, so I don't know actually. Yeah, interesting. If anyone knows, let us know. But that's a good point actually. But yeah, that obviously wasn't a real tiger, but there were real tigers in that scene with Russell Crowe and Tigris. But yeah, I guess if you really want to be pedantic, that tiger would have just bitten his head off. But then if you want to get to that kind of level of silliness, every single film has those issues. Every single film has a moment you think, sod off.
That doesn't make sense. It's it's not believable.
And that's why it's a film, because it's escapism, and it's dropping that kind of silliness and just watching it for what it is. So I can't think of anything really that I disliked at all, which, I mean, the whole, and anyone listening to Retrospectives, you'd have heard the first two episodes, The Exorcist 3 and Zodiac, you would have known that I and my guest pretty much did something similar. Though I think we may have found a few things in some of them, like The Exorcist 3, we found a couple of things, minor things. But because the whole point of these is we don't want to sound too gushing, even though we just spent the last hour and 20 minutes absolutely frothing about this film. There is kind of that idea that you want to, if there is something, we want to kind of be as objective as possible. But sometimes that you can't be, and I'm loath to say any film's a perfect film. Gladiator, it still to me isn't a perfect film per se.
No, as you said,
but it's a bloody good film.
There's some bits that could have maybe been a little tad shorter, so because the pacing slows down a bit.
That's it, yeah.
But it's small things. It's very nitpicky. So
yeah, nothing that ruined the film or took me out of it, or I thought during it, do you know what? I wish that was 2 minutes and 32 seconds longer, because it really would have elevated my enjoyment. So yeah, I mean, a couple of cool facts I found out before. The dog, Maximus's pet wolf. Anybody out there who watches EastEnders would recognise that. That's Wellard the dog.
Is it
who
really?
plays that pet wolf? That's Wellard.
I mean, I did watch EastEnders, I think, for a little bit, and then I haven't watched it in years now. But I did watch it around the time when that dog was in it, and that's the dog at the beginning of the film.
That's Wellard. That's Maximus's pet wolf. The dog's called Kite.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I only found that out today. In
fact, goes from Gladiator to EastEnders.
Exactly, goes from Gladiator to Albert Square, Wolfwood. If anyone out there is thinking, what the bloody hell are they on about? EastEnders is a British soap. It's an institution. It's been running since 1985. What a great year for the world when I was born. It's been running. It's basically set in London, and it's about the EastEnders, the Cockneys, basically, and everything is gloomy and miserable. It's a soap opera. Everything goes wrong that can.
You never want to live there. Let's say that.
You never want to live there. You never want to spend Christmas there. Bloody hell! But yeah, Wellard was a dog, obviously in the soap opera, and he was played by Russell Crowe's dog. On-screen dog.
Oh, that's a cool little fact, actually.
And another one, we mentioned that the actors were quite hard on set. Oliver Reed was basically like, once 5 o'clock comes, I'm getting pissed. Russell Crowe was tearing up the script. He rewrote a lot of his lines and was quite, in true Russell Crowe style, was quite abrupt and brash and aggressive about it behind the scenes. Richard Harris, basically, when scenes were being rewritten, because, which is nothing new, every film on set, scenes are rewritten on set for every film, The director or the screen might think that doesn't work, let's rewrite that. Richard Harris just wouldn't bother, because he couldn't be bothered to learn the lines again, to relearn new lines. So he just did what he wanted, basically. So you've got Oliver Reed and Richard Harris, who are, in their heyday, were probably Britain's two most hell-raising actors of them all. Richard Harris was an absolute mad case in a nice, just like the kind of bad boy of like the 60s and 70s. Oliver Reed, we all know what Oliver Reed was all about. Having them together in the same film, Ridley Scott must have balls of steel. And then Russell Crowe on top of that, Jesus. But he made it work.
Mm-hmm.
He got great performances out of all of them, and as an ensemble, I thought they were so good. And then, of course, Joaquin Phoenix as well. He managed to rein in what could have been a performance that could have been over the top. Joaquin Phoenix was a method actor, similar to like Jared Leto. Yeah. If you go too far into your method and too far into it, it can be over the top. It can be disruptive, and just what's the word when you can't take things seriously. It will come to me in a minute, but noticeably off-putting. I can't think of want of a better word.
Yeah,
it can become off-putting. But I think Joaquin Phoenix was reined in enough to the point where I think his performance was magnificent. And there were times on set where he tried to become very method. He came into work a bit tubbier, shall we say, than normal. And Ridley Scott's like, well, what? You're fat, basically. And he's like, well, I'm the emperor of Rome. Surely I would be eating and living well. And they were like, no, lose the weight now. So he took the character and he put himself into the mindset. Like, if I was the king, the emperor, I would be eating well. I wouldn't be this waif, gaunt chap. So in one way, that's great that a actor would take so much love into his character. But in another way, Ridley Scott's just like loose as timber, mate. So.
And then obviously I keep forgetting to say that Jimon Hunsu.
I stuck with as well. Sorry, Jimon.
I only know him from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
As the guy, Chris Pratt's like, I'm Star-Lord, and he's like, ooh.
Yeah.
It's that guy. That's the only film I think I've seen him in. He was in Captain Marvel, I believe, as well. As the same character.
Been in so many, yeah. He's been in so many films, and actually, This film's got a quartet of characters who've been in DC movies. Russell Crowe was Jor-El in Man of Steel, which is Superman's governor, Superman's dad. Connie Nielsen was Queen Hippolyta from Wonder Woman. Jimon Hunsu was in Shazam, who he was actually Shazam, the wizard. Joaquin Phoenix is, of course.
Joker.
Yeah. And Jimon Hunsu was also an Aquaman as well. So Jimon Hunsu is basically in every single film ever made. If you look at his filmography, it's ridiculous. He's literally in everything. He's a great. I think he's a fabulous actor as well. But
yeah,
his credits, Guardians of the Galaxy, this, Blood Diamond, Furious 7, Amistad, of course, he was in Amistad. Is fantastic in Amistad. Constantine, King Arthur, which was crap recently.
Oh, was that the one with Charlie Hunnam?
Yes, and Jude Law. It was a bit plop. The Island, A King's Man, coming out next year. A Quiet Place Part 2, obviously horror film. Probably shouldn't have mentioned that to you. He's been in so many films, and like I say, Guardians of the Galaxy, that it's just kind of testament to the man that he can pop up and be so good in all of these films, but nobody can pronounce his name. So I'm glad it's not just me. So I guess to kind of end this chat, lastly, before we get to anything else, if you had to name now your number one scene, the most iconic scene, the one that flashes into your bonds when you think about Gladiator, what is it? What would it be for you?
It's probably Commodus screaming, "Am I not merciful?" to his sister.
Yep. Mine would be, "Are you not entertained?" I think just because it's just out there now in the zeitgeist, in the pop culture. Everybody knows it now. Maximus, arms outstretched. Are you not entertained? And I guess the last thing to ask is, do you think Gladiator has left any what is the legacy of this film, or does it even have one?
I think historical film. I don't. I'm trying to think if there were any films before it that were like just as good with like the historical setting and stuff like that. So I feel like that's the market's left in terms of like historical films, not historical biopics or anything. But you know what I mean? I feel like that's probably the legacy it's left as probably one of the best films of all time within that subset genre of historical film.
No, I mean,
and definitely one of the best films I think probably that maybe depicts Rome back in its glory days as well.
No, I think you're right. There were films before it which were, I really think like Ben-Hur. Ben-Hur, obviously, that's one of the most iconic, that I word again, films, like historical film like that. And then you've got other ones, things like, I can't remember that one of Michael Douglas. Oh, it wasn't Michael Douglas, it was Kirk Douglas. What an idiot. Spartacus. So you got Spartacus and films like that. So there were movies beforehand which were all about ancient Rome. It's Lawrence of Arabia, it wasn't ancient Rome, but it was still a film similar looking. But yeah, this kind of reinvented it. We mentioned some of the films that came out since, which are similar, and also directed by Ridley Scott, but then just not as good as this. So and like you said, personally for you, it sparked something inside you, which made you think, I love this time, and I want to know more. So there's a personal legacy.
That's been one of my favourite. I think. Well, I like to say ancient Rome and ancient Greece because, as I said, they're quite similar. But one of my favourite games of all time, and it's a very underrated game. It's called Rise of the Argonauts, and it's basically about the tale of Jason and the Argonauts and his quest to find the Golden Fleece. That's basically it's basically a video game of that mythical tale. But I love it so much because it's just so. It's so it just screams like ancient Greece or ancient Rome, the vibes of it with the combat and just the story and all the lore behind certain characters, because one of your companions in the game is Hercules and it's you play as Jason and things like that. So you go to see the Oracle of Delphi and things like that. So things like that I just love. And it's now, if I could go back and change what I learned in school, because I at some point in our country you can get rid of certain subjects in school. And I got rid of history, and I really, really regret that because
you did geography instead.
I did geography instead, and I really regret that because geography, you learn about erosion, and I think like compared to what I love about history now, I'm like, why did I do that?
You never learn about the good stuff. You learn about how the earth eroding and stuff like that, and
it's just so
limestone, sandstone, and all that kind of guff. We want to know. In history, you learn about the good stuff. I did actually do history, I think, and I forgot. I think we did like World War Two actually, but which is still a cool thing to learn. But I'm in my front room. I'm sitting here in Session Central where we do the podcast, where I do anyway. And to my right, I've got a big old book. It's a 3-tome. It's Ancient Rome, Ancient Greece, and Ancient Egypt, and it's fantastic. I love all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's like a coffee table kind of book. We kind of sit there and flick through it and read all about it. But I too really like this particular period of time. But I haven't been to Rome though, so I haven't experienced it, man.
My favourite Assassin's Creed game is Assassin's Creed 2, which is set in Rome. It's so good.
Funny that. Yeah. Do you often go out in Stevenage or Hertfordshire, dressed up as Maximus?
Alas, I do not. I think the closest piece of attire I think I have is probably like it's a shirt I actually bought in Rome. Was it's almost like the Starbucks logo, but it's like a Roman helmet.
Sweet. So you're a fake fan basically. Hashtag fake fan. You're not a fan until you go out dressed up as Maximus in Hertfordshire. So so I mean, legacy. There's a lot of films that have come since which have tried to ape Gladiator, if you will, like things like Pompeii, which I think
that bombed.
Yeah, which was
I think it really bombed. Yeah. Even though it had someone like Kit Harington in it who was really good in Jon Snow in Game of Thrones. But yeah, apparently that bombed.
It was I almost swore then, for a lack of a better word, it was arse. But there's other films like Centurion with Michael Fassbender, I believe, who has just gone on an absolute rampage of doing absolute shite films.
But there's the TV show with Mark Hamill in it, by the way, so I might get your interest. Nightfall.
Yeah, I've seen the clips of him in it.
Like the Knight Templars and stuff like that. So again, it's very historical. It's not Rome, but it's historical, so it definitely gets my interest. And I think I've watched like the first few episodes of season 1, and then I stopped, not because it was bad, but because I guess I just too busy at the time and just forgot about it. But I want to go back and watch it, especially now because Mark Hamill's in it. Yeah,
I think Mark Hamill's in rocks. And actually, to be Oliver Reed at times looks like Mark Hamill does now in that film. What I noticed when I watched it this week, I was like, I can't get that out of my head. At some points, you look like Mark Hamill in that. But there's been plenty of films out recently, like Exodus, Gods and Kings, which is another Ridley Scott film. But again, it just doesn't match up to Gladiator. In fact, I think Exodus, Gods and Kings was actually cack. And in fact, it's got Joel Edgerton and Christian Bale in it, and somehow they managed to make it not very good. Goldshifter Farahani's in it, who was so good in Patterson with Adam Driver. Bad film. Not Patterson. Patterson's wicked. Exodus, Gods and King, plop. I think even like Noah as well, which was done by the guy who did Mother, Darren Aronofsky. That's kind of another historical film set way back when. That was okay. But Gladiator, I think, stands on its own in terms of modern historical epics, certainly set from that kind of time period. And the Academy agreed as well with 5. I think it should have won more, and I think it should have won Best Score. I think Hans Zimmer was robbed. Mm-hmm. And I know that after this, I'm absolutely going to listen to the Gladiator soundtrack upon finishing this podcast. And I think I'm going to, because it's one of those ones, like you say, at times it's almost easy listening, I think. Yeah.
I mean, you could put the ending music in the end of this episode. If you can do that.
Well, I'm going to find a way to do it. Yeah, there you go. Old Stubbs come on and give us an idea. I like it. We'll do that then. So, okay. Well, that was the legacy. That was Gladiator. I think it's well established that we quite like this film. So, just to reiterate, Star Wars aside, Gladiator, where does it rank for you?
It is at the top. It's the very, very top. Number one. I always have my favourite film of all time, in brackets, besides Star Wars, is Gladiator.
And I know it's a silly question to ask, but hell, I'm a silly person. What would it take to knock Gladiator off the number 1 spot? What kind of film would it take to do that? Would it take a similar film, or
I would say probably a similar film. I mean, Blade Runner 2049 came very close because it's a very, very long film, but I went and watched that at least 4 times in the cinema because I loved it that much. So it, but I think if I was old enough to go to the cinema at the time Gladiator was done. Because I'm trying to think how old I was. I was born in 1994, so that's 2000. So I would have probably been 6 or 7. So yeah, I wouldn't have been old enough to go and watch. I'd be terrified. But if I was, I would have probably done that with Gladiator. I would have probably watched that probably millions of times in the cinema if I could.
Okay, that is interesting and again, it's just like Return of the King. It's got 15 endings, but Star Wars, Gladiator. Now you said Star Wars is that's untouchable almost. Where if you're gonna throw all 9, I see, listen, I'm a Star Wars buff, as are you. I always struggle to remember how many bloody films there are. So ignoring the Clone Wars, if we're going to put all 9 films, there's 10 films, including the 8 saga films, Rogue One, Solo, 10 films, including all 10 films now in your list of great of. Where do you reckon Gladiator comes in your all-time favourite when you're going to include all those 10 films?
Well, you say 10, it probably come at 11.
Yes, no, yeah, yeah, bloody hell. So it's even Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones.
Yes. I would say actually though, I liked Solo, but I would probably put Gladiator over Solo.
Interesting. No, and again, there's no right or wrong answer to that because it's personal opinion. And when I quite enjoy Attack of the Clones and the Phantom Menace for what they're worth and for all of their flaws.
Well, people go crazy when I put my top list, my rankings of Star Wars movies, because most of the time A New Hope is at the bottom. Because
really.
It's just it all depends on what I grew up with. Like at the top, it's obviously Revenge of the Sith. At the bottom, it's A New Hope. And people just can't get over that.
Fathom that. No, I guess that's my incredulity was basically because it's still not something you hear. But to be fair, A New Hope's one of the ones I rewatched the least. And again, it's not because I dislike it, because I adore A New Hope. But
that's I like all those films, all that. But it's just, and the rankings change a little. Like Revenge of the Sith is always at the top. Rogue One is second, and those two normally never change, but it's always the ones under that sometimes will just change depending on what type of mood I'm in. Yeah, but I love all of them, but it's just obviously they need to go somewhere.
Yep, you've only got 10 spaces, so okay, that's fair enough. So Gladiator just about pierces the top 10, just edges out Solo then.
Yes.
That was interesting. Anybody out there, let us know what you thought about Gladiator. We'd absolutely love to hear your thoughts. Did you like the film? Did you think it was a load of hogwash? Were there any moments which we didn't mention? Of course, this podcast could have been 4 hours long if we went through the whole thing. Was there anything we didn't mention that you liked? Was there anything that we did mention you liked? Was there anything we mentioned you didn't like? Do we just sound like a bunch of people blathering on? Let us know. But of course, But of course, as we do on the back row, please keep it civil because we're all film fans in the end of the day. But that is it. The lights are up. That is it for this episode of Retrospectives. From the back row, what I watched tonight. I want to thank my guest, Katie, for giving up her time and coming on to talk some Gladiator tonight.
Thank you. It was great. It's actually great to finally talk to you guys. I listen to you and Master Blindwalker every week, so it's it's almost like a way of me giving back to you as well. So it was great.
Thank you very much for your support. Is always appreciated in any podcast that we do. So that's great to talk to you, and I'm glad we got to do it about a film which you have so much passion for. Great conversation. Before we go, then, if anybody's listening to this and thinks that Kate is a bit of a ledge, and if they are, you're damn right. Where can the world find you online?
I'm normally on everything at Katie with 3 E's 120. Don't ask me why it's 3 E's. I think I was young at the time and I just left my finger on the E key. But I also stream on Twitch at Katie with 3 E's 120, and I also do have a podcast of my own if I'm allowed to plug it.
Of course you are.
I'm not on it as much as I'd like to be at the moment because of work, but it is the Entertain Nerds podcast, which is basically just we talk about what we've been watching and what we've been playing. We talk about some sport. We have a bit of gaming news in there and stuff. And at the moment, we've got a challenge where 250 movie challenge where we pick a different movie every week. Sure. I've fallen behind a little bit, but because I've not been on. But pick a different movie every week from this 250 movie list off IMDb, and we basically watch it and we talk about it. And I think you've contributed to one of those films. And what was it, Gladiator? I think
it's probably The Exorcist because that's all I ever bloody talk about.
No, but there's been so many good films we've watched on that. I've watched because of that challenge, so it's actually quite enlightening, if that's the right word to use. But no, Entertain Nerds.
Yep, go check it out. It's a bloody good idea, actually. It's a real good way of learning about watching new films which you may not have watched before, or you may not even bother to watch.
There's on there as well.
Yeah,
foreign
exactly.
Films, anime films,
old films, black and white films. At the end of the day, film is film. So if it's got a good story, it's a good film. Go and check out that pop culture behemoth. Over at the Entertain Nerds, and join in the conversation as well. Good conversation, good show. But go check out Katie, or as we know her in the podcast world, Katie. So go check out her stuff. If you want to find the show, you can find that at whatiwatchtonight.co.uk. All of the movie reviews go up on there. Obviously, Rotten Tomatoes, we're certified, so go check us out on there. By us, I mean me. So all the reviews go on there. Social media, What I Watch Tonight across Instagram and Twitter. I'm on Facebook too. Don't really use it all that often. So Instagram and Twitter. But yeah, let us know what you thought about the show. If you like what you hear, leave us a good review. Helps the show out an awful lot. If you don't like what you hear, don't say anything. Don't help anyone at all. So so once again, thank you to Katie. Thank you to everybody who's given up your time to listen. I hope you enjoyed it. But from me, until next time, see ya.